Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. The Oklahoma Sooners land their first commitment of that 2024 class, and Jeremiah Newcombe, one of the better cornerbacks in the country, coming from the state of Arizona. And we're finally off and running for the Sooners in this 2024 class. We talked a lot of Sooners recruiting in that 2023 class. That was just a phenomenal job Brent Venables did at pulling together a group. And they're getting some traction in 2024. Although it's their first commit in the 2024 class, I think this class could be very, very special for the Sooners. We'll talk a little bit about that, but before we do again, just want to say thank you to you guys, especially the Sooner fans. You guys are absolutely phenomenal. The support you guys have shown truly means a lot. We love talking Oklahoma football. Brent Venables was one of those hires that my brother and I just love taking a look at and seeing how that culture is shifting within the program. I think something special is cooking up in Norman. And again, you guys have been awesome with the support. So if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Let's get into a little bit about Jeremiah Newcombe, and then we'll talk about what this one secondary is looking at, and then how this 2024 class is shaping up. Jeremiah Newcombe, so 5'11", 175. He plays both sides of the football, and this dude is just an overall athlete. I think where he is going to be special in is breaking on the football, sitting in zone coverage, might play more of that nickel role, but he's an extremely explosive, quick twitch athlete. Yeah, he doesn't have the length to play kind of that boundary cornerback spot, but he's a guy that breaks on the football exceptionally well. Even on the offensive side of the ball, you see that quick twitch ability. And I love cornerbacks that have played wide receiver or played basketball in their background, because what does that say they know how to do? They know how to make a play on the football. And that is something that when you talk about cornerbacks, especially at the collegiate level, a lot of those guys, they have all the athleticism in the world. They just kind of lack the ball skills. Jeremiah Newcombe, a guy who's played both sides of the football, I don't think you worry about that as much. A good addition for Oklahoma and a good start to that 2024 class. Another thing you want to point out, Jay Valai, he's doing a phenomenal job the last two classes, landing some really, really nice recruits, right? You take a look, was a significant role in recruiting Peyton Boehm and Makari Vickers, two guys that were top 100 dudes according to 24/7 Sports. So that's something that I don't think gets talked about enough is, okay, you have your head coach. He is the main recruiter. A lot of the top guys commit to the head coach. Well, guess what? A lot of those players also commit to their position coaches. Those are the coaches who are kind of forming those relationships with the athletes. And Jay Valai looks like a nice young assistant coach that is really starting to be one of those guys that can form relationships. I think DeMarco Murray is another example of that, where you're getting young coaches who are making those connections with young athletes. And again, Brent Venables is going to be a phenomenal recruiter too. I always say this, and we're going to take a look at this 2023 class and how it's coming together. But I always talk about Brent Venables. He's a guy that if I was a 17-year-old stud at football, sign me up to go play with Brent Venables. And he's kind of taken a really unique approach where he's focusing on the development of these student athletes off the field too, which I seemingly really resonating well, because you take a look at this 2023 class and how this is going to shape up through my eyes is you landed your quarterback of the future. So in 2024, you might not see a blue chip 5-star commit to Oklahoma. And then in 2025, you already have your first commit at quarterback in Kevin Sperry, who you feel really good about. That normally happens, right? There's not going to be a 5-star quarterback committing the year after a 5-star quarterback's already committed to the program. So I don't know if we're going to see a Michael Hawkins. Keep an eye on him. But I don't know if you'll see another 5-star in the 2024 class. But you're seeing that secondary that was a position that I thought really struggled. I mean, there's a lot of aspects of that Oklahoma defense that struggled, and I think a lot of it had to do with such a different scheme that was being played from Alex Grinch moving to Brent Venables and how he wants to run his defense. But Peyton Bowen, Makari Vickers, two guys in the secondary that you feel very, very good about for Oklahoma. They're seeming to get a nice young nucleus of guys in the secondary that they can build around. And then I want to talk about the crystal balls that are coming in for the Sooners. Because again, Jeremiah Newcombe, the first commit of this 2024 class, but Oklahoma is getting some traction for some of the best players in this class. I'm really interested to see how they're doing this running back situation, because from what it sounds like, DeMarco Murray kind of set his eyes on a few running backs he really likes, and it isn't even really pursuing many of the other running backs. Caden Durham is a guy that I think is gaining a lot of traction for Oklahoma. And then Tavani Mizell, the longtime Georgia commit, decommits after a visit to Oklahoma. I would keep your eye on him as well. But I think the two gems of the class, and we've all been talking about it, Williams Nwaneri and David Stone. Those are the two guys those are the crown jewels of this Oklahoma class, two guys who are top 10 nationally. I feel really good about where they're sitting with David Stone at this point, just because it was seemingly between Oklahoma and Michigan State. David Stone's taking a lot of visits, but that's where you're seeing the crystal balls come in. Michigan State loses their lead pass rush coach, who is kind of the primary recruiter for David Stone to the NFL. I think that leaves Oklahoma in a really good spot for David Stone. And quite frankly, Williams Nwaneri too. Peyton Pierce is a really interesting guy, middle linebacker. He's a freak athlete, also plays quarterback from the state of Texas. He's a super interesting guy to watch. And again, he's a phenomenal wrestler too. So I'm a wrestling fan. I always root for the guys who have wrestling in their background. Nigel Smith continuing to come in with the crystal balls on that defensive line. And that's where I think Brent Venables is clearly taking a really hard look at, right? You looked at all the success he had on Clemson or at Clemson. It was bringing in top-notch guys on the defensive line and developing those guys. And I think guys like David Stone, Williams Nwaneri, Nigel Smith, taking a look at what Brent Venables did at Clemson, said, I want to be coached under a guy like Brent Venables who produced so much NFL talent at Clemson on that defensive line. And that's quite frankly a very important position for Brent Venables' defense. Aaron Flowers, another guy that's set to commit in about a week. So keep an eye on that in the crystal ball. You feel really good. I mean, and then we got to talk about Michael Hawkins. All the credit for him. He's talking about, like, he's not afraid of the competition, right? You're kind of sandwiched between Jackson Arnold, Kevin Sperry. Michael Hawkins, not afraid of the competition, also been crystal balled there. And then Brian Wesco, he's a phenomenal fast riser in the recruiting rankings. I believe 24/7 has him inside the top 15, an absolute flyer in terms of speed on the offensive side of the ball. So you feel good about that too. A lot of blue chip talent that's being crystal balled to Oklahoma. I mean, you're looking at potentially 3 guys in the top 15 that are all going to be committed to Oklahoma: Brian Wesco, Williams Nwaneri, and David Stone. You sprinkle in a lot of solid 4-star recruits as well. It's looking like it could be a really good class for Oklahoma on top of a phenomenal 2023 class. Stay tuned for, I have a feeling we'll be talking a lot more Oklahoma football recruiting as it rolls on. But again, Oklahoma lands a big-time one in Jeremiah Newcombe, getting on the board in that 2024 class. Again, appreciate all the Sooner fans that have showed the support. We appreciate it for real. If you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.